Hey everybody, Jim Delo, WJOB. We got a couple guys here. We're going to talk a little bit about what we want out of their radio show. This is Ray Garcia Jr., and he is the owner of Taco Real Restaurant, and he's been there since he was a little kid. This is Terry Zitch. Terry is recovering from surgery and so forth, but he is the head chef at Ivy Tech, and teaches a lot of the young and old chefs around here. What we're talking about now, though, is not so much food. We're talking about how to do a radio show. I'm on the air today for 6 hours. Ray has evolved into a very good driver of the radio show, and so we're going to talk a little bit about what I expect out of him as driving the radio show. What we're really looking at is the evolution of a show to where I hosted it and brought these guys in to where Ray will host this as kind of a guest host for me. Well, first of all, and I actually corrected him on air, is that the number one thing is that I'm going to ask him to reintroduce himself and to Terry every 7 minutes or less. Now that's what I use, is 7 minutes. A lot of other people will use 5 minutes. Some will go as much as 10 minutes. But I don't want them going more than 7 minutes without saying, hey everybody, this is Terry Zitch and this is Ray Garcia. We're sitting in for JED on JED in the region, and we're talking eat. And we're talking food and so forth, okay? So I want that 7-minute introduction. The second thing is, what works most here at WJOB? Typically, two-person shows are not the pick of the litter here at WJOB. The best shows here over our 90 years, for some reason, have been one-person shows, okay? And I'll tell you why that is. I have no idea, but in 1985 I worked here, and Julie and Colby told me of that, and Mrs. Grambo, and they told me that, you know, for some reason one-person shows work here. But if you're going to have a two-person show, that the people have to understand that they don't want to just sit there talking to each other like they're over the backyard fence. They have to bring it around to the caller all the time. So the second thing that we need to mention all the time is that it's 219-845-1100, 219-845-1100. And no matter how involved they are into whatever they think they want to talk about, the number one important thing here at WJOB, it does not work unless we make the caller the number one important thing. They are my co-host. I don't have a co-host. I don't have anybody. It's me talking for 4 hours with callers. That needs to continue with Ray and Terry. Now, do you guys have any questions so far? Two things: reintroduction and constantly giving that phone number. Any questions?
No, I like it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to call in, for example, give them a topic that is interesting. And we've talked about it before, that if it's a topic that's interesting to us, we can talk about it at home, but we want people to say, hey, I had that experience, or this happened to me, so they call into the radio station.
Okay, so those two things that there's like 10 or 12 fundamentals to doing a radio show here that I could get to. But there's another one here that I want to get to about today's show. These guys started talking, and a caller called in and said, you know, I want to go to a bar/tavern with a restaurant in the back. And so we started naming a few, and then we got about a dozen phone calls on the top of that. Now, I know you guys had a prepared show, and you knew you had some topics that you wanted to go to. But the number one thing to understand here is that you don't know what they want to talk about in terms of food, okay? So if they're calling in and they're having a question, and the next guy has a suggestion and the next guy has a suggestion, today was a very good example of how the radio show evolves itself. If you think you're going to come in with a topic and, oh my God, all these people are going to be so interested in this topic because we've had these great conversations about it, you're losing the radio game.
The driver of the show is the caller. Caller drives the show.
You are there, and they will feel it, and they will know that you value what they want to say. So sometimes it's kind of a drag because you think, well, God, I really want to talk about this, but they're going this way. That's the WJOB way. There are other guys that say, all right, I've got a topic here, and if you're off topic, I'm going to hang up on you. Okay? Well, we don't do that. We value above everything else what they want to know and what they want to talk about.
That makes a lot of sense. And the notes that I had, that Terry and I had made this morning, were just ideas and kind of, we can't just come in without any idea at all. But you're right, you let the caller drive the show, and that makes a lot more sense because it's really about them.
Today's show, as an example, today's show quickly evolved, and they wanted to talk about taverns and home cooking, and we went and rode with that and had fun with it. That was fun. It was fun to talk about.
Yep.
Brought up several other topics.
We
They
didn't talk about
followed
what we wanted to talk about.
and it took a
But
whole
it's not
other
about
turn,
us.
but we just kind of go with
Yeah.
it. And I think that's what made it interesting, because each call kind of built on the other one, and it just made it fun.
Well, I feel as if these guys are kind of getting it, and I'm looking for little areas where I can step out of the studio for a while. Like I said, 6 hours of live radio. But there's plenty of fundamentals to doing a talk show. I think Ray's getting it as a driver, and next time we'll talk about roles. Next time they have a show, who's the driver, who's the sidekick, and what is expected of each of them. But for right now, we got 3 fundamentals. 7 minutes or less, reintroduce yourself. Every 2 minutes or 3 minutes, remember to give the phone number. And then here at WJOB, we value the caller, we value the input more than anything else. And that is what has kept us going for 90 years. I'm Jim Deedlow at AM 1230 WJOB.
219-845-1100.